guys, so today I thought I would go through my 36 books I read in 2025, and then I'll go through the 26 books I'm prioritizing for 2026. So I'm going to go through them super fast because there was 36, and I'll talk about just what I gave them mainly. So the first book I read last year was I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jennette McCurdy. So I gave this one 5 stars, and it was my first book of the year. Really good, grew up watching her, so loved that one. The second one I don't have on me because it was on my Kindle, so that was the Cinnamon Bum Bookstore, which I gave 4 stars. So hopefully I'll continue to finish that series eventually, just not at the moment. The third one was The Housemaid's Wedding, which is like a little short novella about her wedding, and I only gave it 2 stars. It was just kind of boring. Like, I probably didn't need to read it now that I look back at it. Then the fourth book I read was With Any Luck, which I gave 3 stars. So once again, don't have it, it's on my Kindle, but it was really short. Same as the next book, which was Worst Wingman Ever. I only gave that 3 stars because that was also just a short, easy story. The next book I read was Don't Look, which is part of a Taylor Sage mystery series. I really, really like that. So hopefully this year I can read a couple of more books from that series. So the first one was Don't Look, and I gave it 4 stars. Then the next book was another short story. It was The Exception to the Rule, which I only gave 3 stars. I read a lot of short stories last year, which, looking back, I don't think I'll do that again this year because a lot of them were like 3 stars. They're not like amazing, but they're not terrible. Then I read the second book in the Taylor Sage series, which was Don't Breathe, which I gave 4 stars. Love that series at the moment. Then I started book club. So we had our first book club read, which was Forever After All, which I gave 4 stars. And then after that, I continued on with the Taylor Sage series again, and I read Don't Run, which I gave 4 stars. Then we had our second book club pick, which was The Nightingale, which I only gave 3 stars, which was a bit controversial because I know people love that book. It just was not for me, which is fine. Then next I had ACOTAR. I read this book. It took me a really, really long time to read this book. I know people love it and rave about it, and I can see why, but it's just not for me. So I only gave it 2 stars, which was very low. Then the next book I read, I do have, was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. She is my favourite ever author. I literally have like a bookshelf just full of her books and like just her because I love her books so much. So I obviously gave it a 5 stars. Then I read Counting Miracles for book club, which I just gave a 2. It was nice. It was just not like something I would read, but that's like the best thing about book club is like pushing yourself out of like your comfort zone to read those kind of books that you wouldn't think you'd read otherwise. Then the next book I read, I do have, it was The Perfect Son by Freida McFadden. This one, I did not expect what happened like at the ending. I was not expecting any of it. So I actually really, really enjoyed this book. I read it really fast. I gave it 5 stars. So that was a really good one. Then next we had another book club pick, which was Darling Girls, which I gave 4 stars, which was like my introduction into Sally Hepworth's work. And now I've got like 2 more books I want to like read by her. So I really, really like her writing since reading that. The next one was the Mind F series. So there's 5 books. I gave them a 3 and then 4, 4, 4, 4. I just thought I'd put them all together because it was part of the series. They were all really good. They were really short, really easy to read. So I really liked those. So after that series, the next book I read was Twisted Games. I read Twisted Love a year prior to last year, so in 2024, and I just never picked the rest of the books up. I don't know why. I think I was just like worried they were bigger, but oh my gosh, I loved Twisted Games. I gave it 5 stars. Reese is probably my favorite like book boyfriend like throughout all of the series. I just loved this book. Like, I rave about this book. It's probably one of my favorites. So I read Twisted Games. And then after that, I read Summer Romance, which I don't have. That was another book club pick. It was actually my book that I picked for book club. So I gave it 4 stars. I really, really liked that, and I'd love to read more books by Annabelle Monaghan because that was so good. After that, I read Twisted Hate, which I was a bit like almost disappointed, I guess. I only gave it 3 stars. I just didn't feel like the connection and the love and everything as much with these two. It felt like so much like hate, like without a lot of love, which I know it's Twisted Hate, but like, I don't know, I thought there'd be more love in it towards the end, which there is, but there's just not a lot. And then the next book I read, I do have Done and Dusted. So I got the other 3 books for Christmas, so I'm definitely going to read them this year. But I loved this book. I read it so fast. I was just intrigued by it the whole time. So love that book. I gave it 5 stars. Then the next one I read was also on my Kindle. So I read We'll Always Have Summer because The Summer I Turned Pretty came out and like everyone was talking about it and I loved the show. And I had read the other 2 books, but I hadn't read the 3rd one. So I was like, let's just read the 3rd one. I only gave it 4 stars. I mainly listened to it on audiobook because I just don't know why, but reading it just wasn't doing it for me. I probably would have DNF'd it if I read it. So I was glad that I found the audiobook because it was more likable. The characters actually read out their parts in the audiobook, which I really liked. Then next I read The Naturals. This was really good and I've got the rest of the series, the other 3 books to read. So hopefully I'll be able to read them next year. But this was really good and it surprised me. I gave it 4 stars, but it actually had some really good twists and turns. So I did like that book. Then next, I finished it and I did Twisted Lies. Mainly listened to it as an audiobook because this book is like huge. It's like a good 500 pages. So I listened to it majority, but I did read some of it. And I liked it. I gave it a 4 stars. So definitely up there, but definitely Twisted Games was my favourite. Then the next one I read was a Halloween book. So it was on my Kindle. I read Halloween Party by R.L. Stine. And I only gave it 3 stars. I know that he writes for like a younger teenage audience. Like I read Goosebumps when I was a kid growing up. But I wanted a Halloween read and I read it. And it was good. Like the end got me. It was like twisty and turny, but yeah, just not my kind of thing. And then we had our next book, which was Unraveling Oliver, which I gave a 3.5 stars. And that was also for book club. So that was good. I enjoyed it. Just didn't think I'd rate it higher than that. Then the next book I do have, I read Buck Cowboys. This one was so short, as you can tell, so easy to read. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I read it very fast. It was just so intriguing to me. So I really liked it. I love a good cowboy book. And then after that, I finished The Let Them Theory. I read this really slowly over last year. So as you can see, tabbed a lot of things inside it. There's like highlighted parts that I liked and like little sticky notes with notes. So I really liked reading it and I definitely recommend reading it slow so that you can definitely take everything in, but this was so good. Then the next book I read was Death Row, which is part of an Alibis collection. So I have it on my Kindle. And the first one was by Frida McFadden and I only gave it a 2 stars. So this really surprised me, obviously, as I like gave one of her books 5 stars earlier in the year. And I know that she's a very up and down author for people, but I've liked everything I've read by her. But this book was just not it. But I have a feeling after reading the second book in the series as well, that maybe this Alibis collection, you're not supposed to find out the ending, or you're supposed to like make your own based off what information you get. But I just, yeah, it's okay. Like you get like an idea, it's going to be pretty obvious, like who most people would, or like what most people think would happen, but I would just prefer if they ended it. But anyway, the next book I read, 5 stars, Emily Henry again. Of course, as I said earlier, she's my favorite author. I love her. So this was so good. And I don't know why I didn't read it for so long, but Miles, he's like one of my favorite book boyfriends in Emily Henry's books. Obviously, my favorite book is People We Meet on Vacation, or You and Me on Vacation. I even got a special copy of that, like hardcover with the sprayed edges for Christmas because it's my favorite book. But I think Miles almost tops and takes the top tier for Book Boyfriend. So he is so good. I love that book. Then the next one I read, short and sweet, was kind of like a Christmassy New Year's read. I got this one from the Dirty Bookstore, which I also didn't mention. Buck Cowboys came from the Dirty Smart Bookstore as well. But this one was like, wow, for me, I'd never read anything as smutty, you could say, as this book. So I gave it a 3 stars because I just wasn't used to that amount. But it was still good, still loved it, but just not as much as other books. And then the last 2 books I read for the year were on my Kindle. So I read The Ex-Wives Club, which is the second book in that Alibis collection I was talking about. And I only gave that a 2 stars as well. That one was by Sally Hepworth, which once again, I read Darling Girls earlier in the year, and I've got other books by her I want to read. But that one was just not it. Once again, you don't get to really know what happened really. So I just didn't like it. But there is, I think, 3 more books in the collection, but they're by authors I've never read. So I kind of want to read them anyway, just to see what it's like. And then the last book I read was my Christmas book, which I started last year but finished at the start of this year, which was The 12 Dates of Christmas. I gave it a 3 stars. I liked it. I just got bored in between certain parts, but it was fun reading about the dates. And then obviously at the end, it's like, you know, classic Christmas romance. So it was all cute. All right, so now let's get into the 26 books I want to read in 2026. So this is going to be my main goal. A lot of things are off my physical TBR because I really want to smash that this year, because last year I read way too many other books on my Kindle that I just wanted to read at the moment. So the first book I really want to read, Great Big Beautiful Life. Obviously, as I said before, Emily Henry, she's my favourite author. This is the last one I am yet to read of hers, so then I can add it to my Emily Henry shelf. So I really, really want to hear this one. I'm a bit nervous because I know there's lots of mixed opinions about this book, but hopefully I'll like it. Then the next one I want to read is Don't Let Him In. I got this for Christmas and I'm just really intrigued by this book. Like, I read the back cover and I was like, I need this book. I really, really want to read it. I love a bit of mystery and thriller and suspense, so I'm really hoping this will be good. Then I want to read Mad Mabel. I've been seeing this go around and so many people read it. This is one of the Sally Hepworth books that I want to read. So I'm really intrigued to read this. I actually think it's set in, Australia. So that's where I live. So that will be really cool. So I really want to read Mad Mabel. I also want to read Flawless by Elsie Silver. So I've never read a book by her before, but I have 2 different series of hers. So I thought we'll start with this one. I really want to read it and get to it this year because I love a cowboy romance. As I said before, I read a couple last year, so I'm really looking forward to this. The next book I want to read is Magnolia Park. So I have had this on my physical TBR for like 2 years, and all I know is it's Magnolia and BJ, and that's like as much as I know about it. So I'm really, really wanting to read this and then like continue with the rest of the books if I like it. Then the next one is Hard to Handle. This is like an ice hockey romance. I got it from the Dirty Bookstore. So it will be interesting to see what this one is like. So I want to give it a go, but I don't mind a bit of a sport romance book. Then the next book I want to read is by Frida McFadden. This is one I haven't yet read, and I would like to read all of her books because, like I said, I know that she's hit and miss for a lot of people, but I seem to rate a lot of her books pretty high. So I'd really, really want to read The Teacher this year, so that one's off my physical TBR. Then after that, I want to read the next 3 books in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. So as you saw in the first part of this video, I talked about how I read the first one this year and I loved it and how fast I read it, and I gave it 5 stars. So I really, really want to read these next 3. I got them all for Christmas, so I think I'll really like them, I'm hoping. And then the next one would be The Family Next Door, which I don't have a physical copy, so I'd get it on my Kindle. So that's another one by Sally Hepworth that I'm so intrigued to read that. I just saw it come up on my Goodreads and I just saw who it was by, and I was like, oh, like I love her writing, and like read like the synopsis, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to read this book. So I really, really want to read that this year. And then I want to read Told You So. So if you don't know, that's by Macy Neely. And if you don't know who that is, she's on the show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which I watched last year, finished it last year. And I love that show. And she's like my favorite person probably on the show. So I really, really want to read her book. So I'm going to buy that and read that. And then I want to read It's a Love Story. So as I mentioned in the bit before this, that I picked an Annabelle Monaghan book for book club last year, and I really, really liked it. I didn't expect that because I never read from her before, but I definitely want to read It's a Love Story this year. And then I want to read Anxious People. This book is by Frederick Backman, and he has like such high reviews. People love his books. They rave about his books. They say how good they are. And I read the synopsis of Anxious People, and I really, really think I'd like it. So I'd really like to get to that this year. Then the next book would be The Obsession. This is a book that I've had on my like Goodreads want to read page for a really, really long time, maybe getting close to 2 years. There's just something about it. I don't know if it's like the mystery aspect. I just really, really want to read this book. So we'll see how I go. So the next book I want to read as part of my 26 in 2026 would be Mile High. I think it's part of the Windy City series by Liz Tomford, I think. So I think there's like 5 books in that, and I really want to read them all. So I thought, of course, we'll start with Mile High, which is the first one. And I think they're all about like different guys, and like some of them play sport, some of them are dads. So I think that will be really good. The next one would be The Last Word. This is like a mystery thriller. And I have been wanting to read this for like a couple of years. I just haven't had the chance to pick it up yet. So I really, really want to get to that this year. Then the next book would be Daydream. I do have a copy of it. So this is part of Icebreaker and then Wildfire and then Daydream. I read the other two like maybe 2 years ago. So I'm a bit rusty on these books, but it would just be nice to finish the collection as a whole. Then the next book I want to read is Credence. So by Penelope Douglas, I believe. So I really want to read this. It's been on my want to read for a while. It's just, if you know what this book is about, it's just a bit nerve-wracking going into it. If you don't know, you can look that up in your own time. The next book would be Mad About You, which is by Marley McFarlane, which I have heard the best things about her from other book YouTubers. So I really, really want to get to a book of hers this year, and I think that would be a good one to start with. Then next would be The Book of Doors, which is a bit like a fantasy mystery book, which I've also wanted to read for a couple of years. So definitely going to get to that this year. So the next book would be Hello Stranger, which is by Catherine Center, I believe. And I read one of her books a couple years ago, and I loved it, gave it 5 stars, and I just haven't read a book by her since. So I really, really, really want to get to that book this year. The next book would be Love Letters to a Serial Killer. So this book I found one day on Goodreads, and I added it to my want to read, and I've just wanted to read it for like the longest time. I don't know what it is about it that just intrigues me. I've got no idea what it's going to be like. I just really want to read it. And then the last 2 books would be Butcher and Blackbird, which my mum has my copy at the moment, so I don't have an actual copy, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. And I've got all 3 books of the collection. So I've wanted to read that for a long time, so we're definitely going to read that. And then the last book would be Exiles, which is like an Aaron Falk mystery. So there's 2 other books. I think The Dry would be the best known one, which is the first book, and they've also turned the first 2 books into movies. So I really want to read Exiles in case they also turn that into a movie. So that wraps up the 36 books I read last year and the 26 books I want to read this year in 2026. Hope you all enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.